Just by way of a little bit of background, many people may not know that in last fall, 1998, Congress passed a law with an overwhelming majority called the International Religious Freedom Act, which made it a fundamental aim of American foreign policy to support those who are persecuted for their religious beliefs around the world. And among those, the largest class of those people are Christians. The legislation received broad public support, in fact, although it still encounters skepticism among officials in the State Department and even in the human rights community. Well, that, in the mind of our speaker tonight, would be a great irony, because he wants to suggest that, in fact, human rights of any kind, whether it's the right not to be tortured, the right to life, the right to free expression, only makes sense when it has a religious foundation. Our speaker tonight was born in America, but is a naturalized citizen of Great Britain. Surveys of Americans' geographic knowledge prompt me to add that that's an island of about 9,000 miles east of here. As a junior professor seeking tenure, reading his resume is nothing but exhausting for me. Our speaker has 8 earned degrees, including a PhD from the University of Chicago and an MPhil in law from the University of Essex. He has written over 40 books, which have been translated into, which are in English, French, and German. He is internationally regarded as a lawyer and a theologian. He's professor of law and humanities at the University of Luton in England and director of the Human Rights Center there. He's here tonight to tell us why human rights are impossible without religion. So join me in welcoming Dr. Montgomery.
Thanks very much. Everyone is in favor of human rights. Human rights in many ways parallel motherhood, apple pie, and the flag. No matter where you go in the world, you will find that the political leaders in power, including some of the very worst dictators, are nevertheless in favor of human rights. Human rights, as my head of school in England remarks, is a sexy subject. It's a subject which immediately elicits interest, and everyone presumably favors human rights. And yet, a decade ago, René Clément, the famed French film producer, did a movie entitled Les uns et les autres. Les uns et les autres, some others. And he took this title from the French translation of George Orwell's Animal Farm. All the animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. And the point of the film was that in reality, in practice, though everyone favors human rights, they favor human rights in their own terms. That is to say, human rights are employed as a device very often to justify what one's own nation is doing, to ensure that one's own nation receives favorable treatment, but other nations are not looked at in the same light. The most important question in the area of human rights is certainly how rights can be justified. As I mentioned earlier today, my dear friend Professor Rosenblatt of the Concordia University here in California, just to the south of here, has remarked on occasion that he has a right to a Rolls Royce. Very often in the field of human rights, there is a confusion between rights on the one hand and wants and needs on the other. The fact that one wants something, the fact that one's life would be immensely better were one to have something, the fact that one genuinely needs something, do those matters equate with a right to have such? Professor Rosenblatt is deeply troubled by the fact that his students often drive automobiles that are in much better condition and much more recent than his own. Does that fact constitute a justification for the professor having a car of a certain status while the student has a car of another status? How do you define rights? And after you've defined them, how do you justify them? That's what we're going to be dealing with tonight. And in order to do this, we want to take you on a little journey back in time. Would the outline please be